Hey everyone, Ronnie Bincer, your Hangout helper and the TNT Bootcamp co-host, along with Christine. Christine, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. How are you today, Ronnie?
Doing well. Hey, let me give a quick preview as to what we're doing here, and we'll get right into the show. We've been bringing on influencers as interviewees and asking them specific questions as well as letting them speak about their particular area of focus or at least greatest level of influence. And we're going to do that today with our friend Mark Traphagen. Mark, can you just say hi for a moment?
Hey, hi everybody. Right now, pay no attention to my hands. I'm influencing.
Ooh, nice. And
And now we know how it's done.
Yes, there you go.
Was the camera on me?
Yeah, the camera was. Okay, so just for a moment here, we've got other shows that we've done prior in this series, so you might want to check them out in the details area. It's either over there or over somewhere. It's on the side. And we've got some more shows coming up, but the bottom line is we started out talking about tools that you might use inside Google Plus to help you identify who the influencers are, as well as to lead you into that path of becoming influential. And then we brought in the level of discussion with influencers, people, and asked them what it is that they do and how are they gaining this influence and how are they managing it. So before I want to give a little more time to Christine to set this up, but I do want to ask a couple quick questions that Mark will try to work into the show. And it's only a 30-minute show, so he gets to do this skillfully and quickly. One is I want him to tell us, as an influencer, are there things that people do that bother him? In other words, when they're trying to reach out to him as an influencer and they're bugging him, is there something that they do regularly that is not wise and something we could keep from doing? And then secondarily, is there something that people do that actually gets his attention and endears them to him when they do those kind of things? So with that said, even though those are questions for Mark, I'm going to pass it over to Christine so she can fill in some of the blanks that I might have missed. Christine, you're on.
Yeah, and we also want to talk to Mark about Google authorship and author rank, if there is such a thing, which we'll get his thoughts on that, and how implementing Google authorship can help you become, help boost your influence, especially in Google search, which is where many of us are trying to boost our influence for sure. We do have a couple more shows coming up. We have Martin Shervington, I believe, in 2 weeks. Is that correct, Ronnie?
That is correct.
And then after that, we've got
Jaana Nyström and
yes.
Chef Dennis Litley.
Yes, so we're very excited about that.
Lined up for a couple more influencers. So, Mark,
yes,
you're on. Hi. It's been so fun to get to know you. And we've never met in real life, but we joked about this off and on, that we have a really good relationship just because of Hangouts and the magic of Hangouts. So there's a lot of influence that happens there, isn't there?
It is, and it's a great influence builder. We were commenting on that at the New England Google Plus meetup last week, where we had you, Ronnie, as I'm sure you know.
I was there.
I think your memory extends back at least a week.
Yeah.
Ronnie was our guest via Hangout from Colorado to Framingham, Massachusetts. We had about 22 people live in the room listening to Ronnie explain about Hangouts and how they can be used creatively, but also interacting with their questions. And what was cool to see was how exciting it was for those people, most of whom know Ronnie by his content, know by his name, his reputation on Google+, how exciting it was for them to meet him, and they really felt like that's what they did that night. Through the magic of Hangouts, they got to meet Ronnie Bincer. That was a thrill for everybody there.
That was very cool, and I thank you for that, but we're wanting to focus on you. So this time, Mark, tell me if there's something that either I do or other people do that bugs you as an influencer because we're trying to ride on your coattails, per se. Is there something that people do like that is a problem?
Yellow plaid. Definitely. Oh, I'm sorry. No, love the yellow plaid. Looks good with your backdrop, actually.
It's part of the branding, yes.
Yeah, seriously, I have a feeling that my answer is going to be similar to what some of your other guests may have said, but I think the number one thing is people pushing something at you without any relationship or introduction. It's kind of the old cold calling thing in sales, where you just call up people or call up businesses almost randomly and try to push your thing out there. And it just rarely works, especially in social media. Now, I'm going to quickly share that it can sometimes work. It's a little bit of a risk if you're willing to take it, if you present it in the right way. My example that I always go to is our mutual friend Wade Harmon, who sometime last year, I didn't know him, never heard his name, came out of nowhere, sent me a private message on Google+, which 9 times out of 10, if it's a stranger, I'm going to probably just take a very quick glance at it and then ignore it. But he made an impassioned plea that the content that he thought would be of real interest to me. And he and I have tried to find that post ever since. Unfortunately, it's lost in the sauce. We can't find the exact words. But what I remember was that he was careful enough to connect what he had done with my interests and explain how and why it might be of interest to my audience and might help me. Whatever he said, it was enough for me to want to click through and look, and it was awesome content, and I shared it, and the rest is history with Wade Harmon. So I think the number one thing is just that cold calling. If you want somebody who has some influence to be sharing your stuff, you've got to invest the time to build relationship with them first, to show that you have value to them. And I think the number 2 thing, just quickly, would be trying to build a relationship without building any substance. Just plus oneing my content or just coming on and posting a comment like, great stuff is,
or wow.
Or wow, yeah, it's nice. I appreciate it, but if your goal is to kind of get on my radar screen, that's not going to do it. Bringing something of substance, bringing help, great opportunity can be if I'm struggling to answer somebody's question and you have that right answer and you come in and in a humble sort of way bring that help, you've helped me, and that can make a connection.
So I want to
go ahead.
Wade is actually in the audience, and he says that the influence that Mark has had on my career here on Google Plus has been astounding and very helpful to him personally.
Oh, thank you, Wade. I think the quick lesson there is that there are times when it's not wrong to be bold, to reach out and to ask. But I think now, Wade has learned so much, and he has put so much into practice, especially in relationship marketing. I have a feeling that even Wade probably would have approached it differently now. I think he would have taken that time to build that relationship with me first. And knowing Wade now, I know that wouldn't have been a problem for him.
Now, do you have a perspective as to comparing Google Plus to, say, Facebook or to LinkedIn or to Twitter? Is there a different method you think that people need to approach this with, or is it about the same everywhere?
It's similar. It can be more or less difficult on some networks. I think Google Plus, those of us that have used it actively here have seen that there seems to be some particular power here that just builds relationships faster. And I know it's all anecdotal, but there's enough of us that are saying it. There's enough of us that have seen it that seems to work here. Facebook's going to be a lot harder because the basic model on Facebook is that it's mutual follow, right? It's your friends. It's supposedly people that already know you. Now you can follow people on Facebook. You can follow influencers if they allow that, if they have that enabled. But then it's the same principle as here. You're coming in as a stranger. I think you're going to want to spend some time on their threads, sharing their stuff with adding some substance to it, commenting in their threads in substantive ways that over time they see your name again and again connected with, okay, this guy, this gal is smart. They know stuff that can be useful to me. I want to engage with them more.
Yeah, I tend to notice, when if I post something and if I start seeing like the same people engaging and commenting over and over, they do start to catch your attention, and you tend to go look at their profile, and if there's someone that has content that interests you, you're going to probably add them to your circles and start engaging with them as well. And I do think that a lot of people, I think, like they'll either send that private message right away, or they'll make one comment and then they might feel ignored, when honestly, if you do need to take that, sometimes it takes more than once to even get noticed.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up. This is from Wade. Since we asked the question, the magic of Hangouts lets us actually get an answer live. Wade's saying he would definitely approach Mark differently. Now, something he doesn't recommend is approaching him just out of the blue like he did. And then another one is whoever finds the post, I guess that's missing, will be rewarded handsomely a night stay at Mark's house.
Well, Chris, thanks for offering that prize. Investing in much of it personally, as you obviously have.
So, Mark, let me ask a question. Oh, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Were you going to fill in some more with that?
Well, I think just that the other. I had something, I forgot it. It's okay. Chris Fullman always knocks everything out of my head with his humor. So. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I was going to ask you questions about authorship or author authority and things like that, and how that ties into being an influencer and how that makes a difference, and wherever you wanted to run off with that one.
Sure. Authorship has become kind of a broader topic for me these days. A lot of people who followed me for a while know that for my first couple years on Google+, I was very focused on specifically what we call Google Authorship, which is a program of Google that allows you to connect your Google+ personal profile with your content across the web with the potential that it may be shown in special ways in search, what we call rich snippets, where they will show either your byline, your name along with the search result, or in special cases they'll even show your author photo, your profile photo alongside those results. And while nothing no evidence that we have currently, and also nothing that we have from Google, in fact the indications are the other way, indicate that it's a ranking factor at this point, a direct ranking factor, we do know pretty well that it's already something that Google is taking into consideration in some ways. For example, it can be one of several qualifiers that would help get you into what they call in-depth articles, which is a special feature in search. It only shows up for a certain set of queries, but it's a blocked out set of 3 articles that Google considers go more in depth on a topic. And your authorship can be one way among several others to qualify for that. I believe it also, especially since December of last year, when Google tightened up on showing authorship snippets in search, the quality of your content, the engagement around it, the places where you publish, the quality of those, I think all those things become factors that help determine whether you get that image in search. Now let's quickly get back to the topic here. I don't want to get too embroiled in the technicalities of authorship. What's more important for what we're talking about today is that can be one more significant way of reinforcing your personal brand. It's just a psychological thing. If people are seeing you again and again in their search results because you're producing really good content about what they are interested in, what they search for, and they're seeing your name, they're seeing your face, that reinforces your association with that content.
Are there any studies that show that, I'm assuming that there's a much higher click-through rate if your face is showing up in the search results. I'm sure that those results are much higher clicked than without it. Do you know any studies on that? Or?
Yeah, Cyber Shepherd, some other people have done some good studies on that. I can put some links in the comments afterward on that.
Okay. Sorry, Ronnie.
Another question that's related to our stream, in other words, what we've been doing over the series, is if you connect with someone who's an expert in a specific niche, an area that you're interested in, doesn't this authorship somehow help you and them together grow in the layers and levels of influence, or is this just a dream in my own head?
Well, again, we don't have any evidence that it's a search ranking factor, but, and this is your question is a perfect lead into where I wanted to go next, and that is something that a lot of people ignore in relation to Google+. Another factor why I think Google+ is particularly powerful for building influence is personalized search. For the last couple of years, Google has highly personalized search. So if you're using Google search while logged into your Google account, and everything that we have says more and more people are doing that with every passing year, then your search results are being heavily influenced by people in your Google network. Now, if you build a powerful network on Google Plus,
Meaning their search results are being, or yeah, okay, anybody,
right?
yours in the royal you or something.
Yeah, right. Yours in general, but the collective you. But so somebody who follows me, let's make it personal, on Google Plus, or has me in network, and
Was
possibly
that was that a pun on purpose? Let's make it personal.
exactly. Um, so let's make personalized search more personal. Uh, Somebody who follows me, the things that I post, the things that I recommend by plus oneing or sharing, all of those may show up higher in their search results. And now this is where we tie back into authorship, because in personalized results, almost all of my results are going to show up when they show up as a when Google is boosting it in somebody's personalized search because they follow me and they're searching for something that I write about. It's almost always going to show up with my authorship photo.
I see you all the time in my search results.
Right, because we have mutual interests. We have an association, so Google figures there's got to be more value in my content than some stranger that you don't know, and so they actually push it up in the search.
Mark,
so that can be very powerful. Yes.
do you remember way back when we did a little project of tasty dog bones, where I had a dog, you had a dog, you posted on you recommended a website, it showed up in search, and then I said, look at that, I already know Mark. Google knows that I know Mark, therefore that's helping me see that search result. Now the specifics have changed as to how they go about displaying that in the search results, but the concepts I think are still there behind the scenes.
Yeah, the display, they monkey with the display all the time and exactly how they display those recommendations. But what's important is that what we do know, and test this extensively, is that they are still boosting the results. So if you, again, a huge side benefit of being active on Google Plus is that your influence extends into search, especially for those who are in your network, who follow you. There is some evidence that it may go into the extended network if you have a particularly powerful profile. Extended network means that the people who follow you. And when you get up to the level of where Ronnie or I are in our follower count, that could be literally millions of people. Potentially. I mean, not all those people are going to be searching for what we write about, but the potential audience out there.
But the potential reach and the concept of what we're talking about with the layers and levels of influence is pretty darn powerful. So, Christine, do you have a specific question you wanted to ask Mr. Mark on when it comes to the authorship and things like that, as far as building and digging into influence?
Well, I would think, if someone is a new blogger and they're just starting out, or they're just new here on Google Plus and they have their authorship set up, how would you, what can they do to start building their network and their influence quicker? What steps would you suggest that they do to get started?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, first of all, I just want to mention quickly that that Copyblogger has published a really good free downloadable ebook on Google authorship. So it can be. We don't have time to go into how to set it up. People are going to be wondering that. That's a resource that I'd recommend. And also, Plus Your Business website has some resources on Google authorship. So people might want to check those out as far as the mechanics of how to get it set up and how to use it. But to your question of how you go about, you get that all set up, you build the influence. The number one most important thing is the content that you're creating. You want to, this is on the top of my mind because I just published a post about it today here on Google Plus. But the importance of building content that's around a theme. You need to know what you're about. What do you represent? What do you stand for? Whether it's for a company, a cause that you represent, something you're passionate about. Define that and then create content around that theme consistently. That's high quality. That's going to get people talking and sharing it and wanting to to show it to other people. That's been the number one thing for me. And then second to that is being available around that content to allow people to get that content connected with you as a person. That means you've got to be present. You've got to spend some time out there in the social networks, engaging with the people who have commented on or shared your content, Spending time not just thanking them, but asking if they have any questions. It can be simple things. Something that's done a lot for me is whenever I publish a guest post on Search Engine Land or Marketing Land or Moz or someplace like that, first thing I do when that post goes live is I'm the first comment on that post. I say, hey, I'm Mark Traphagen. I wrote this article. Thank you for reading it. If you have any questions or comments, please know that I will see them and will engage with you here. And then I make sure that I do that.
You also wrote something the other day about the importance of sharing frequently here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think on all social networks, I wrote my latest column for Marketing Land was on the importance of sharing your content more than once. And it's a hard thing. I got some resistance to it because immediately people think, well, that's spamming. But the reality is, in social networks today, that most people will not see your content if you just share it once. Now this varies with the network. It's especially true on Twitter because the Twitter stream goes by very fast for most people. If you just tweet something out once, the vast majority of your audience will never see that tweet. So a strategy that we've employed at Stone Temple Consulting for some time now is when we publish something, we pre-schedule on different networks, we do it different ways, in advance when we're going to reshare it. So if we share it Monday morning at 9 o'clock, the next one might be Tuesday at 5 o'clock, and then Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the morning to catch the overseas crowd. Just different days, different times. We also just quickly, part of that strategy is, so it's not always the same post, we vary the post content. One thing that we do is we do what we call value-added shares, where we'll take nuggets out of the original content. Usually just people share the title, right, of a content and the main idea. We take an individual tip or an individual quote or nugget from the content and make that a share. So even if people have seen the original share before, it's something a little bit new. It's a new angle on it that maybe the first one didn't catch their eye.
And if all of these are linking to the same web page, each share of it would be sending new social signals when people plus it and comment and reshare on it. So thereby boosting it in the results, hopefully, with the social signals.
That's the whole topic because I'm not one of Eric and agrees on this. We've published on it. We don't think that social signals have any direct ranking factor at this point, especially in Google. I think that's been pretty well established by now, and Google representatives have been clear about it as well. So now, the value, that doesn't mean social doesn't have value. The value is more indirect. The more that you get your stuff shared, not only by yourself, but hopefully by others too, who are sharing and putting it out there and writing about it and linking to it, that leads to the opportunities for the things that do directly influence search results, primarily links. Nobody's ever going to link to my content if they're not seeing it, if they're not reading it. So I've got to market that content. I've got to get it out there in attractive ways and put it in front of people in enough ways that it gets shared enough that eventually some people will see it who are going to do things that do influence the search results. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So your content you're just talking about now is primarily about resharing or posting again a pointer to a blog post. What about the idea? Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah, primarily that's what we're talking about. Like you publish a blog post either on your own blog or a guest blog somewhere.
Okay. What about the idea if you are posting just on Google Plus and it's not pointing to your website, but it's a tip that you're putting out there, let's say about Hangouts, for example. Is that something you think that should be shared more than once?
I think it could be. It's not a strategy that I have, I would say that I have, on Google Plus in particular, I have shared a post more than once or reshared a post. Sometimes I'll do what, Martin Shervington kind of coined this, the time zone, sharing for the time zone. Like if I share something in the afternoon here on the East Coast, I might reshare it again the next morning because it's going to catch a whole new crowd. One quick tip about Google Plus and resharing things is I give it more space than I do on something like Twitter because I think Google Plus posts can have a longer life than a tweet. Somebody calculated the half-life of a tweet is about 24 minutes. That means that in 24 minutes, half the people that are ever going to see that tweet have already seen it, and it's gone, and then it diminishes quickly after that. On Google Plus, I think the half-life is a lot longer because if your post starts to get any engagement, it gets bumped up in the streams of people who are following you. It comes back up to the top. So even hours later, post you post, it can still be getting, bumped up. And of course, if it gets into something like what's hot, then it's really going to have a much longer life. So all that to say, if I do reshares of Google Plus content, I tend to space them out further than I would on Twitter.
Because it's feasible that somebody like you might have hitting a +1, and then all of a sudden it resurfaces my post in the stream without me having to do a reshare.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's another way on Google Plus that you can actually kind of subtly reshare your content. Sometimes what I'll do is kind of a sneaky reshare where somebody else has shared my content maybe a few hours later or the next day, and I'll +1 their share of it. Now, that +1 these days, people should be aware, doesn't just say, hey, +1, great, good job, but it potentially creates a recommended post, both into Google Plus itself, which means it can be pushed out to your extended network, and Google Plus will show up in people's streams who aren't even necessarily following you, but say that somebody that they're following, +1. So people that are following me would get that pushed in, and it could show up in your Google network, people who follow you, in their search results as a recommended post. So it's a way of kind of extending that reach.
So I'm now developing.
That brings the question: should you plus yourself? Should you plus your own post?
we had a funny meme post about that a while ago, and it got a little bit scatological, but, about plussing yourself. But don't do it if it's against your religion. I don't do it, except I know I've done it by accident, just because I'm always a little fearful that somebody will check who's plus the post, and it just looks
Well, sometimes you're not sure who you are when you're doing it, because you might be the Stone Temple Cats or something.
Yeah. Right.
But I do know that some people have recommended plussing their own posts to give them a boost again. But then of course, people might see Christine DeGraff plus Christine DeGraff's post,
right,
and that looks a little sketchy.
Yeah, I know. I'd rather do it when somebody else is resharing my post, because it seems more, first of all, I'm saying, the +1 is saying thank you for sharing this post, so it's a legitimate +1, and if it happens to push it out further into other networks,
so I'm thinking there's actually a pretty fancy ninja technique right there. If you were in the realm, or normally, and this is something I normally do, which I might need to rethink. If I made a post and it was reshared 10 times, I would usually go out to each one of them, boom, 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 and thank them, so I can get that out of the way, in essence. Thank you. But move on to other tasks after that. But it might have been actually smarter for me to do one and then come back a little bit later and thank another one at a different time to give this a longer half-life.
Yeah,
who has time for that, though, Ronnie?
Yeah, who has time?
That's the thing, is I can say a lot of those things sound like great strategies, but it's just like, the only way that I could do things like that is to plant reminders, and it's easier to do like the reshares with older blog content, because I can go find that easily. It's not as easy to find unless I put it on a spreadsheet somewhere. What are my older Google Plus posts that I should be resharing?
But some of this, don't forget, some of this, just because you're an influencer and you're so busy with all your notifications, it's not applying to everybody else. So if somebody else has a post that recently got reshared a bunch, and they're not that busy on the network, they could use that and go back and thank everybody for the reshare or for the sharing on a spaced period of time, and that might make a bigger impact.
Good point. Yeah, one way to do that would be just to open each of those posts in a tab on your browser, and so that sometimes I'll do that if I don't want to share something in Google Plus like within 2 minutes of each other. So I've just shared something, and then I'm going through my stream or notifications, and there's another great post from Ronnie Bincer. I should share that. But I just shared something a minute ago. What I'll do is I'll right-click on the timestamp and open that post in a new tab. So later, an hour from now or something like that, I can come back and say, okay, now I'm going to share it. So you could do that for the thank yous as well, the +1 thank yous.
So Christopher's pointing out that you won't go to hell if you G+ go yourself.
Your religion may vary, so that's.
Well, we're already at 1 minute of the hour.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
These conversations tend to go pretty quickly. So thank you, Mark, for being part of our influencing marketing area of the Google Plus and the TNT Bootcamp. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate everybody else out there watching live. We've got another show coming up in 2 weeks with Martin Shervington.
Yes.
And we hope to see you there. Christine, any final parting words for today's show?
I want to ask Mark real quick which tools that he uses on a regular basis so we can give them a shout out.
Was that to me? You broke up for a moment.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mark. Which of the tools, which tools here on Google Plus do you use on a regular basis?
I think my primaries that I use almost every day are Steady Demand, for third-party analytics, especially on the pages that I manage, and Circle Count, which is always a great, quick check of things. I have used Circloscope from time to time. That's something I need to take another look at and dig more deeper into. Nodex, is that?
That's how you pronounce
say it out loud. Yeah. Nodex is it's kind of like I had somebody say that with the rock group Mal 5, or Dead Mal 5. It's Dead Mouse if people don't know, but they make the S into a 5. So yeah. It's on my list to take. That's a tool that needs a deep dive, needs a lot of time investment, but returns a lot.
Lee Smallwood has recently been putting out some really good tutorials on that, so you should take a look at those. Yes.
That goes out.
All right.
That's all good. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sharing that. We're going to have to wrap it up so we can keep to everybody's time schedule. So we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone. And don't forget to watch the other episodes if you haven't seen them before. Thanks again, Mark. I'm going to highlight you as we turn this thing off. See ya.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. Really appreciate the time.